Good morning. Welcome to Sacred Enzyme. I'm Stacy. I hope that you're doing well today. We still are having intermittent bands of rain here in Florida, but we really needed that rain, and so I went out and checked the Alchemy garden this morning, and the lettuce bottom that we stuck in the dirt that was from the supermarket, it's already starting to grow. So I was excited. I had a little piece of lettuce popping out of it about this tall. So, I mean, seriously, I could probably let that go back to seed if it wants to bolt, and then I'll have a whole bunch of romaine lettuce seeds. And, they may be small heads, but who cares? Just because they're small doesn't mean they're not good. So I had to go to the library yesterday because my books were due, and I have got to show you what the universe brought me at the used book section. I got a whole bag of books for $1, and then the rest of them were either, if they're a paperback, I get them for I think it's $1.25, and if they're hardback, $2.50. All cookbooks are $1, which I have cookbooks coming out my ears, so I don't need any more of those. But I got some fantastic finds. I always say that my guardian angel is depositing. That's what I tell the librarians too. I said, let me see what my guardian angel brought me this time around to add to the library, right? So I got America's Forgotten Architecture, which, just cracks me up because we've been doing all these episodes on the old world stuff. And then John Locke's essays. So I've been reading about Thomas Jefferson, and I've been reading his daughter's letters. There's a book on Audible, I think it's called America's First Daughter, and it's about Patsy Jefferson, and boy, I tell you, they wrote a lot of letters, and so I've been reading about that. So John Locke and Thomas Jefferson were friends. Locke's were friends of the Randolph family. And then this one, how the Scots invented the modern world. So I started reading this one because I had to see what this book was about, if it was just crap or not. So this is what started me down to the whole discussion of for today. But not only that, let me show you these books. I got literally almost all these books for just $1 altogether, okay? I got this book about entanglement, quantum entanglement, which I'm totally down for that. Darwin, hacking Darwin, epigenetics, which we've been talking about that. And then human cloning and human dignity. This should have some really good breadcrumbs in it. And then you know how I'm always talking about too much phosphorus, proteinaholic, eating animals. Oh my gosh, let me just tell you, I read about 30 pages out of this, and I am so turned off to ever even considering putting a piece of meat in my mouth. I'm not joking you. I'll tell you, if you're sitting on the fence about, your cravings for meat and you're trying to kick it, I'd advise reading this book. I'll tell you what, it takes you down a whole other subject, which we're going to talk about today. Edge of Evolution. Genetic roulette. I'm just like, oh my goodness, Sophia, what are you trying to tell me? The muse is telling me something, right? She's telling me that our genetics are being destroyed by animal protein and parasites, So I started reading the How Scots Invented the Modern World. And when I got to the very beginning, it starts talking about John Knox and Calvinism and all this stuff. So then I end up going down a whole thing trying to find out about John Knox. So then I start back. I also got these books. I checked these books out from the library yesterday. These are my own books, and we read those all the time. But I figured I'm just going to start with St. Augustine with this Iberian connection and see where it takes us. So we really need to take apart all of the information that's about St. Augustine, that's about any of these early explorers. So I got a bunch of different books. I've got, this is a book about Eden, vanishing Eden, but it talks about the archaeology that was here, like the stuff that they dug up, the plant flora and fauna, and all of that. And see, this is really important. This is very key. And then I got a book on the Fountain of Youth, but it's just a joke. So after about 5 minutes of that, I'm just like, this is not even, doesn't have anything to do with Fountain of Youth. And then the Spanish missions, because, you know, these Spanish missions are also key, because, you know, they were using these churches were like schools. Monasteries were actually schools, okay? And they would teach these children and adults at these monasteries, and they would learn how to do all this stuff. This is how these Celt people were and these Scottish people, because they're a fraction of the Celtic people, you know, because all these people have just traveled through time all around the Mediterranean basin, and they all intermingled with each other for thousands of years. And you know, these people, they were leftovers from Atlantis, because Atlantis sunk, because these people were so smart. But truthfully, what I think happened is that these people ended up getting parasites. They ended up getting parasites because they were eating meat. They were eating meat. They ended up getting parasites. And the reason that some of these people became warlike and crazy and all of this stuff is because of that exact reason. You've got like mad kings and all this stuff. I really think it has to do with parasites. And I think that a long, long time ago, they knew about these things, but they got addicted to drugs. They got addicted to substances. And the substance thing, or maybe the diet, created the parasites, which creates a craving for substances. Because basically a parasite is a host. And whether you have bad gut bacteria or you have some type of big worm living on you, regardless, that's still a parasite. It's a parasite living off of you. So if you were going to know the basic definition of what a parasite is something that has to survive off of taking another thing's life force. Okay? And so I think that when we talk about phosphorus, that phosphorus can be one of those things that can cause us to lose our life force. So I want to talk about plants, and it's amazing how I started to get to this video, because I was getting things together, and I was printing something off of my printer, and I went out to get it, and I was praying, because I like to say a prayer before I start these videos, because I really want to be, I do all this on the fly. I do all this studying, I print out a few things, I write some notes, and I sit down here, and I try to explain everything that I've read in a condensed version, so you're not sitting here for hours or, you know, listening to somebody read a book. But, you know, some of these older, more rare books that I get, which I'm so thankful to get, I'm going to find a way to read them in the entirety on Audible. I mean, not on Audible, on YouTube. Because I see some people that do, you know, read these books so other people can get the information. Because some people might be interested in reading the whole book themselves. And, you know, I don't blame you, but a lot of people are in a constant hurry. So I got ready to do this video. And so I went out and got the stuff off the printer. And I was talking to God, Sophia, and Archangel Michael to please inspire me divinely today of what would be a good subject to talk about. And as I looked over into the trash can, I'd seen this paper that my husband must have tossed, that was part of it was stuck in the printer. And I actually printed this up a long, long time ago when I was studying for myself. And this talks about the heart rate variability. And I thought this was really interesting that I found this there, and I just asked that question. Because I was thinking, okay, well, what happens if you don't have a good heart rate variability? It's not an arrhythmia, but your heart rate variability is the time or seconds or microseconds, however long it is, between your heartbeats. It fluctuates slightly, and these variations are really small, and they can add or subtract a second. a fraction of a second between beats. It says heart rate, I'll read you the definition. Heart rate variability is where the amount of time between your heartbeats fluctuates slightly. Even though these fluctuations are undetectable except with specialized devices, they can still indicate current or future health problems, including heart conditions, mental health issues like anxiety and depression. Okay? Well, your brain and your gut are very intertwined. And the reason that is because of your vagal nerve system. Okay? Your vagal nerve system is like your electrical system. It's like your wiring harness that's hooking everything together. And it's running electrical pulses up and down that thing from all different ways, all different senses and things. The chemicals you're putting in your body, the things that you're being subjected to, physical and emotional and electromagnetic, all can affect your vagal nerve system. But one of the main things is that parasites will. Now, I think that they used to know about parasites because as I've been studying this stuff on St. Augustine, I came across a story about how they would kidnap these explorers and force them to navigate for them. And guess where they got these people? They would kidnap them from Iberia. They were kidnapping Iberia sea captains, like sea navigators, because they knew how to get to the real world, the new world. They knew how to get here. And I thought, well, ain't that some shit? So that's how they were all getting over here to these countries over here. Was the French were doing it, and the English, I think, were trying to like recruit them. You know, they would offer them, you know, all this stuff if these Iberian navigators would offer to work for them. And you know, the Berbers had to have already been here because they've let this slip. They've let it slip that they were pirates. And that they were trying to, and get this, they were saying that they were intercepting the gold that was being, you know, the gold trade. And I thought, the gold trade, my foot. They were coming here and they were stealing all the gold and they were taking it back. That's the only reason they wanted colonies here. And and then, you know, these Iberian people were here. And these Berber, they were navigators because these are these North African Berber people. And they were like from the Phoenician group. And these people were amazing sea people, just like the sea snake in the House of Dragons. If you're watching that one, you'll see that the sea snake is the black guy, right? That's because he was a Berber. I mean, come on, people. You don't think that the golden serpent is not all these people? It absolutely is. They all ended up in Iberia. And I'll tell you what, it just took me down to a whole other thing here. So I want to talk about parasites, and then I'll come back on another video and I'll talk about this information that I found out when I was studying about St. Augustine. And this is just some new stuff that just got published about this. So I'm really excited that this stuff is all coming to light, man. I'm telling you. So I want to talk about how, when I was reading about St. Augustine, I was also reading about, you know, these countries that are in South America, because these navigators, they were really wanting to get to South America because they were wanting to get like cocoa beans and all of these things. Okay, well, this leads me back to the Iberian people, because these Iberian people were leftover Atlanteans. And so they were the ones that had sailed all over the place and gave these people this knowledge. Well, there's a genius of type of plant. And this one right here is one that grows in South America. And it's called Yopo, Y-O-P-O, Jopo, or a calcium tree. And it's a perennial tree. And it's native to the Caribbean and South America. Guess what this is? This is DMT. This is a plant that makes DMT. It gives the same effect as ayahuasca. Okay? So we had drug trade all over the place. This place was a big pharmaceutical. I wouldn't be surprised if that manuscript, the Voynich manuscript, was actually a drug book on pharmaceuticals. And the reason that it looks like they're splicing all those plants together is they're telling what portion of that particular plant has to go into that ingredient. Like there's one that people say looks like a sunflower, and it's not. It's a passion fruit flower. But you know, there are a lot of the stems are changed out, and it looks like it's somebody just didn't know what they were drawing. But I think it's a visual recipe. You take this plant, you find this other plant, and you take these leaves, because it will clearly define what type of leaf, because all leaves are related to their family shaped on the shape. And this is one thing that I've learned since my brother died 4 years ago. I really got into gardening because I did gardening as a way to deal with my grief. And so I started really studying about plants because I wanted to grow stuff out here. And that's how I started learning about different kinds of plants. But, you know, they have certain leaf shapes. And so, you know, these angiosperms grow like, this is the plant here, and it almost looks like a lot of stuff that starts growing wild here, for real. But they would smoke this in these pipes. They would smoke these in these pipes. And this is the chemical compounds that's in that. I mean, you can see that it says DMT in there, you know? So that took me down a whole nother path, because when I was getting ready to have this conversation about parasites, I was looking for this little bottle of bitters that I got. I got this bitters because I was studying about probiotics, and you know how basically the beer water that they drank in old times was probiotics. You know, so they knew that they needed to have good gut bacteria because of parasites. Well, this is what they're famous for in Belize, is cacao beans, okay? Guess what this does? Yes, it kills parasites. There's a group of plants that have natural hydrocarbon. And I think that natural hydrocarbons are probably like an enzyme, because what they do is they perform a process. They break down polluted soil. Okay, and so these plants are cacao, okra, cotton, roselle, and durian. And you know, I've never grown durian, but I know that cacao, okra, and cotton, they all have like a cottony type inside around the seed, okay? And you know, they use the cotton, the cotton that's in the cotton to make cotton. But the seed is really what the important special part is because they extract out the natural hydrocarbon off of it, because it's kind of like toxic. It's like glycol almost. It's in the same family because it's like ethylene family, but it's a natural one. It's not made like when you refine in petroleum. This is just a natural one that's in the thing. So if you allow this to break down into to fall in you regenerating these plants into your yard, it's going to regenerate polluted soil. So I think that they knew that. They knew that this was a multi-purpose plant. A multi-purpose plant, and it also killed parasites. And you know what ended up happening was that they all got turned on to sugar and other things, and they were feeding bad gut bacteria. And that they had parasites from eating meat, because you're not supposed to eat meat. I don't care. Anybody can come on this channel and they can say all they want about that they're the healthiest they ever been on the carnivore diet. Good for you. Good for you. But I can tell you, you stay on that carnivore diet, you're not going to live to be very old. And if you do, good for you. But for most, it's just not the fact. And the only reason that it works is that puts your body into a state of ketosis. And the reason that happens is because you've been eating so much garbage for such a long time that every filter in your body's clogged up. You probably got a bad gallbladder. You probably got a bad gut. You're probably in the bathroom as soon as you eat because your stomach's full of parasites. So yeah, go ahead and put some more parasites in it. So these plants were used as antiseptics. They were multi-purpose plants, but they forgot how to use them. They forgot how to use them. And then when they tried to use them without the knowledge, I think that they ended up just not even understanding what they were for. You know, it's probably, we had cotton probably growing here already. You know, the Atlantean people were in the United States because they were part of the Iberian Peninsula. That's where they were. The main Atlantean islands sunk, but there were outposts all around because they were running the world. They were running the world. They knew how to do everything. It was an old civilization. It was an old group of people, and it was a bunch of different types of people. It wasn't just like one group of people. And see, that's where people get so hung up, because when they think Atlantis, they just think that it's just like one type of people, and it's not. It was a bunch of multiracial people, and they all brought knowledge. They all brought my knowledge, and they all amalgamated it. And then they spread it all over the world when there were times when the population needed help. They had to teach them animal husbandry and how to grow crops. You know, it's a lot to that. So then they built these castle-like buildings that a lot of people can't figure out what they're for, and these huge institutional-looking buildings, they end up turning into sanitariums, and those were schools. Those were schools. They lived communally. And then you had all of these ideas, you know, you had these equalitarian societies where men and women were equal. You were as good as you applied yourself. You got one life, the one you're given, and the other one you make, right? So yeah, you make it what it is. And these people were go-getters. And you know, they knew that the world was dependent on them, and they didn't let them down. So parasites, I mean, are parasites to blame? Are we doing it to ourselves? Are parasites to blame for our own demise? Is that why the golden apple was so important? Because it's a citrus fruit, and citrus is a natural antiseptic? Let's think about that. What about salt? What about Celtic sea salt? 97 trace minerals? And they mined it all around estuaries. Don't think they weren't trying to find estuaries. Their life depended on it. You know, they'd been around for so long. I'm sure that the people from Atlantean, they had mapped out this entire planet, and every place that had an area that looked like the Mediterranean, like the Gulf of Mexico, that whole area, they inhabited those places because that's where everything is. That's where all of the minerals are. That's where all of the metals are, you know. And then you have, you know, I've run across it. It's funny because my son's last name is Smith, and him and his wife are planning to have children. And I ran across this myth called Wayland the Smith. And basically it goes back to Anglo-Saxon lore that's infused with the Celts, because everybody was intertwined. You had the Anglo-Saxons, you had the Celts, you had the Germans, you had the Spanish, you had all these places. You had the Greeks, you had the Romans, you know, and they just changed their names 100 times, but they was all part of the same group. They really were. I think that they just got scattered out, kind of literally like the Tower of Babel when it fell. They did get scattered out because they had a catastrophe, so they got separated. And then after generations go on, you forget what happened. So they knew that these plants replenish the soil. But people now, they don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about it. I'm hoping that my seed order's coming today. I'm going to do a video today where we're going to chop open this jackfruit, and we're going to look at the inside, and then we're going to take some of the seeds and we're going to plant them in the inside of the fruity flesh. And then I'm going to take the other ones and put them on the dehydrator, and I'm going to dehydrate those out and then save them for a rainy day, right? Save them for a catastrophe or whatever. Save them for the seed bank. Save them for the seed bank. So we're going to try to grow some trees. So we're going to go outside. But, you know, I just have to say is that I think that parasites are the reason for a lot of our problems. Seriously. That's why people are getting sick, because these parasites, they damage the vagal nerve system via the stomach. So you really are what you eat. And, you know, it just becomes more and more clear to me, because as I was watching this guy's video, and I'll have to go back and see the name of his channel. But he has just a wonderful heart, and he has so much empathy for humanity, and he goes out and he sees about these people that are homeless. And all of these people have parasites, I can tell you right now. That's why they act the way they do. That's why they have addictions. It starts early. And, you know, when your traumatic experiences happen early in childhood, children usually turn to food. I think that's how parasites get introduced. They get introduced through things that have a lot of phosphorus, because you get this conversion that happens when you're introducing phosphorus to the body. And so you know, we have to be careful with the phosphorus. We have to be careful with the phosphorus. And I really got to learn more on chemistry and how all these atoms move around and how it works. You mean, you can look at the periodic table, but the way that I understand it is that the hydrocarbon compounds, they have like 4 different components, because it's like a 2-step process. Like you take A to B to B to C equals D, is the way that I understand it. So it's just not one changing to another. It's like doing an equation like that. So that's how natural hydrocarbons work. So, you know, I think that they grew these antiseptic type plants. I think that this is why they had bitters, is because they used bitters. They would take them and they tasted so bad that they would mix them with liquor, because the liquor is just like when you make a pest spray. Like if you want to make a homemade extract, if you mix it with alcohol, it stays longer. So maybe this is why they were mixing the bitters. They were mixing the bitters with alcohol, because they taste so bad, and it, you know, I don't know. But I know that this is how they got bitters, and it was tonics for medicine, and maybe they just started adding it to their drinks, because drinking is bad for your stomach. So, parasites, yeah. Parasites are bad news. And people are starting to talk about these parasites, and I am glad, because people are dying from cancer all the time. My brother died from cancer. My other brother, he died from a stroke. But, you know, parasites are bad news. They affect your behavior. They affect you. They can make you promiscuous even. You know, promiscuity. Absolutely. Can make you have, can open you up to different things too, you know, all kinds of influences. And maybe these parasites are actually carry the energy of the midway creature, you know, because they're not human. So are they a midway? Is that why they are able to influence the behaviors? You know, have you ever seen someone that had a multiple personality disorder on like a documentary or something like that, or have one in your family? They talk about how the voices will interrupt their thoughts, or they want to talk or whatever. Those are midways. There's a guy that worked in a mental asylum, and also he worked in drug and alcohol, like asylum type. I guess, you know, like if somebody is sent in because they need to be like quarantined, or, you know, in a hospital setting. He worked in those, and he'd seen like, I think it was 2,000 patients that were diagnosed with like multiple personalities or schizophrenia. And after doing years and years of studying and work with him, he came to the realization that these were other entities that were talking to humans, that they were trying to take over their body. And maybe it starts with a parasite. Maybe it starts with parasites. And you know, parasite is a parasite. It doesn't matter if it's a bad bacteria type parasite or if it's a worm. It's a parasite. And it will keep continuing to grow and multiply. So you have to ask yourself, you know, what's going on here? Are parasites from the midway? Are they here to suck the life out of us? Yeah. So maybe that's one of the reasons that we have to have moderation. Maybe that's why we had the 10 Commandments, is because they were worried about spreading parasites. You can get spread through sexual transmission, through food, through all kind of ways. Exchange of fluids, you know, contaminated meats, eating blood. Yeah, a lot of different stuff. Maybe that's why they started sacrificing people. Maybe they lost their mind from parasites, or maybe they were trying to get rid of parasites by taking somebody else's immunity. You know what I mean? Because there were some people that apparently had really good immune systems, and it would show up in their exterior. You know, their hair color, their skin color, whatever, their skin texture. They knew exactly what the inner body was doing from the exterior body. You know, if you look at someone and they're fit and they look healthy and they have thick, beautiful hair, and, you know, they look like they take care of themselves, you know, because they look like they do on the exterior, because your insides are a reflection of your outsides. And so we all got work to do. We all got work to do. So, you know, I just find it amazing that we're just figuring all this stuff out after all this time. And, you know, that's okay, because as long as we implement it, we're in good shape. But if it does a little good to learn and then do nothing about it. So what do you think about parasites? Seriously, what do you think about eating blood? And, you know, how the parasites and bad bacteria start in the gut, and they cause all kind of problems. They affect your variable heart rate. You know, they affect your brain. They make you crazy, make you crave sugar, make you crave all kind of stuff. You know, drugs, sex. It can make you sick. You know, and that was one of the things that I ran across, is that, you know, this plant that they were smoking, that was a hallucinogen. I thought it was interesting that anytime that they do these types of hallucinogenic drugs, they always mix them with something that causes them to completely purge themselves crazy, like tons of vomiting and diarrhea, and they would also fast. I think that they did that because they were trying to purge out the parasites. So when they took the hallucinogenic plant, that they were not seeing the midway, that they were able to go through because they were spiritually cleansed. They didn't have any parasites in their body. What do you think about that? I think that that's what it was. I think that's what it was. And, you know, the Divine Mother, she had all of that medicine. The Divine Mother knew all of that knowledge. She did. She knew it all. And she's been taken from the forefront for a long time. And so it's time to get back to nature. So it's been 34 minutes. I thought that was very interesting material. I mean, it just goes to show you how you can start reading one book and then you can go off into 5, and you can find fragments and clues and things, and from all of it we are putting together a puzzle piece of these Iberian people, their extensive knowledge. They had a huge, long memory. They were amalgamation of people, and they'd been all over the world, and they were here. And you know, if there were pirates that were blocking these Spanish and French ships that were coming back from the New World, right? And they're going back to their respective places, and they've captured these Iberian navigators. What's that say? Well, why would we have Berber pirates over here on the coast trying to intercept these ships? It's because they were taking their stuff. That's what I think. So with that, I'll catch you on the next one. So when you come and find me, I'll be here, because we're living in the past, present, and the future, all at the same time. So make sure you get outside and get some sun, and set your intentions for today, and say today is going to be a beautiful day, and give thanks to the Universal Father and our Divine Mother, Mother Earth. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.